all, Farmer Jesse here. Real quick, a couple things. One, you will have noticed that this is no longer the Rough Draft Farmstead YouTube channel. We changed it to No-Till Growers because, well, that's kind of what it was anyway. And also, the content's not really going to change that much. Really, all it's going to change is that we're going to show some other farms and some other farmers, along with our farm at Rough Draft Farmstead, which is kind of the No-Till Growers headquarters. Anyway, that's not super exciting. What is exciting is that Hannah and I went up to Quebec this week, and we went and visited J.M. Fortier at his home farm at Grelinette, he and Madeleine. Then we also went to Ferme Quatre-Temps, and we went somewhere else, but we'll talk about that somewhere else later. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to post one video here about JM talking about his ecology and how it's kind of wild there at both of his farms. There's like this really amazing wildness there. So he's going to talk about why. And then I'm going to be sharing some of the other videos over at our Patreon page at patreon.com/farmerjesse. We're trying to raise that up a little bit so we can do more of these kind of videos. We've put a couple on the Patreon page. If you're a Patreon member, you can watch those. There's going to be some from JM Fortier. There's going to be some from Wild Hope Farm. So go check that out, just patreon.com/farmerjesse. That's just over there. You can go check that out. We'll talk way more about that later. But here's JM Fortier talking about ecology. See, one thing that Hannah and I kind of love about this farm and Grelinette is like just a certain amount of wildness to it. Can you talk about that? And
yeah, you're kind of catching me on something that I have an opinion about.
Good.
So obviously these two farms are my farms, so they reflect how I see things. Like this farm I designed and La Grelinette I designed. You know, if we're talking about no-till, that means that we're interested in ecology. There's no reason why you would talk about no-till if you're not interested in ecology. Am I right?
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine somebody talking about no-till if he doesn't care about that?
It'd be hard to imagine.
Okay. So I visit a lot of farms that are advertised as no-till, and they're super cleaned, but there's no life. Like, there's no insects, there's no shrubs, there's nothing growing. Everything is soil or cropped, no weeds, nothing. It's like, and for me, like the farming, the vegetable, you know, the weed control is about not having weeds compete with the crop and not having them set seeds. But besides that, my beds don't, my farm, my beds, my blog don't need to be like pristine, beautiful. We're not taking pictures all the time. So that was my first style. And then here on this farm, what I really wanted to do is to bring the ecology back into the system. So there's the field blocks, and then there's the permanent beds, and the whole system that I've been using for a long time. But it's surrounded by ecological niches, like these hedgerows. So they were planted to do three things. First of all, they're a windbreak. Okay, so the west winds are strong, especially in the spring. So they kind of enclave the field blocks so that it's less prone to get affected by wind. And wind is like the number one, can you say detractor? Like the one stress agent on crops is wind.
100%.
So it's an important factor.
And on farmers.
And I hate, and on farmers. I was about to say I hate wind, which I can't say, but
right.
Nowadays my mind is so kind of.
Yeah.
And so that was the number one. And then the number two is that all these shrubs were chosen because they either attract beneficial insects that could have an impact on some of the the insects problems that I have here, or they attract birds, or they attract another species that will add to the overall ecosystem. That's why we have the bird houses. And then some of these shrubs are little fruit trees that will do little fruits in the spring and in the fall. And so what we wanted to do is just to create with these hedgerows an ecological niche, and bring beauty and bring the ecological functionality back into the hardcore intensive growing system.
Yeah,
long-winded answer.
No, I love it. I love it because you just, I don't know, I guess in your when you think about the kind of numbers that you're running here, and you just imagine perhaps like a perfectly pristine farm, and it's definitely pristine in some ways, but it's also pristine in the ecology. Like it's got all this beautiful ecology that...
Yeah, there's a lot of flowers everywhere in bloom.
Incredible amount of diversity.
And there's a lot of birds, especially in the spring when they're all nesting. Like there's hundreds of birds over our heads, flying, zooming out, and they eat a lot of insects. And so the whole concept with this, and it's really hard to test and trial and to advocate for, because it takes a lot of time and science to kind of back it up, the claim. But what we're doing is we're trying to have an ecosystem that is preserving the crop from insect pressure. So it's an ecosystemic approach to crop failures in regards to insect. The meaning is that you have so many insects that your cucumber beetles, they'll be there, but they can't take over. They can't spread out because there's not enough room for them. They're competing with all sorts of different insects in the garden.
Yeah.
And so that's that's more of a permaculture approach, and that's what we wanted to do here, and mix both, have that concept blend into something that is really productive.